Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, I want to come on here for a few minutes and share with you my thoughts on the recent release on 4K Ultra HD from the Criterion Collection of the 1978 film from Sidney Lumet called The Wiz. This is an adaptation of Frank Baum's story, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. So it is a Wizard of Oz adaptation. It is also a live action film, which is based off on the Broadway musical of the same name, The Wiz, but it's based on that Wizard of Oz story. And this particular film stars Diana Ross as Dorothy. You have Michael Jackson playing the Scarecrow and Nipsey Russell playing the Tin Man. Ted Ross plays the Lion. You have Lena Horne in this film. You have Richard Pryor playing the Wizard in this film. Really interesting adaptation of that classic story, of course, made incredibly famous for all time by the 1939 film starring Judy Garland as Dorothy, The Wizard of Oz, the all-time classic. This is a 1978 film using the same source material. And it's a really interesting musical in that it is an all-black cast, has a soulful, angle to it. You have Quincy Jones providing a lot of the musical direction to this film. And it's a film directed by Sidney Lumet, who was made famous by doing very different films before he did The Wiz. So it's a very interesting story behind this title. So I want to come on here for a few minutes and share what I think about this movie, what I think about the 4K picture. This is a new 4K digital restoration with the Dolby Vision grade. So how does it look? Looks good. But then also talk about the audio and the supplements, and then whether or not this is a package that you should consider picking up during the Barnes & Noble sale. So this review is coming up while the sale is still going on in the month of July 2025. Is this a title worth adding to your cart during this sale or a future sale? Let's talk about it. All right, we're talking about The Wiz on 4K Ultra HD from the Criterion Collection. It is spine number 1264. And I'll give you a quick look at the front here. Very nice artwork. And when you see this film and come back and see the artwork, you really can appreciate it more. The characters, just a beautiful, beautiful cover here on the front. And then on the inside, you have the fold out and the two discs. You get a 4K disc, which has the movie and the commentary, and a Blu-ray, which has the movie, the commentary, and the supplements. So really nice looking package, but overall, this is a very interesting film, and I'll take a moment to read the back of this case. It says, L. Frank Baum's timeless story, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, gets a funky reimagining in this lavish adaptation of a landmark Broadway show based on the book. Diana Ross brings her show-stopping star power to the role of Dorothy. Here, a Harlem schoolteacher who is magically transported to a surreal fantasy land that resembles New York City, complete with man-eating trash cans and a disco paradise. Propelled by the musical contributions of Quincy Jones and an all-star cast that includes Michael Jackson, Richard Pryor, and Lena Horne, this dazzling soul spectacular from legendary director Sidney Lumet reframes a beloved tale through the Black American experience, creating a powerful celebration of self-determination. I've seen this film in bits and pieces during my childhood. This was the first time actually sitting down and watching it from beginning to end, and it was an absolute treat revisiting this film. This is a wonderful, entertaining musical that I really, really enjoyed. So let's go through a few of these slides to share a little bit more about this film and about what you'd experience watching this film, The Wiz. This is my cover page here, The Wiz, Criterion 4K review, but this is led by director Sidney Lumet. Before he did The Wiz, he did 12 Angry Men, Serpico, starring Al Pacino, and Dog Day Afternoon. So he did these very different films before doing The Wiz in 1978. He was known for these urban dramas like Serpico, which has a great 4K from Kino Lorber, as well as 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men also has a Criterion Collection Blu-ray to consider for the sale as well. Excellent film, an excellent addition. And then, of course, Dog Day Afternoon, which is due for a 4K release. This is the 50th anniversary, 2025. So fingers crossed we'll see a 4K of Dog Day Afternoon. But then he went on to do The Wiz and adapted to musical fantasy with emotional focus and balanced narrative clarity with theatrical flourishes. So you see Sidney Lumet down there at the bottom left with Nipsey Russell, who played the Tin Man during the production of The Wiz. So super cool stuff. In this film, you have some incredible luminaries. Diana Ross, who played Dorothy in this film. This film opens up with Diana Ross as Dorothy with her family in New York City in her uncle and aunt's apartment. And it's a big family gathering. And the film opens up for those first few minutes showing you Dorothy with her family, showing Dorothy as a young woman trying to figure out her direction in life, where she wants to go. She's kind of lonely, hasn't found love yet, still trying to find herself. And so the film spends a few minutes early in the film establishing that aspect of her character and her family before taking you to the wonderful land of Oz. So it spends those first few minutes in New York. You spend the vast majority of this film in New York City before, of course, clicking the heels 3 times and returning back home to Manhattan for a very short ending to this film. So the majority of this film is spent basically in the land of Oz. So I think you got about 134 minutes in this film, and probably 124 of it is in Oz. So really, really interesting in that regard. But Diana Ross gives a wonderful performance as Dorothy in terms of showing the tenderness of her character, the charm of her character, and was incredible during those singing sequences in this film. Some really beautiful musical numbers that showcase her powerful voice and powerful stage presence with her dancing, her singing, just wonderful. And then, of course, Michael Jackson, he did his thing, dancing and singing in this movie as well, and really enjoyed him and the interaction between him and Diana Ross. Seeing the two of them together, Michael Jackson and Diana Ross, was an absolute treat to revisit. And then Nipsey Russell playing the Tin Man, the man who's a Tin Man who is in search for a heart. Just a beautiful reimagining of this story. He brought his comedic warmth and emotional depth to that character. This film is really important from a cultural and a musical standpoint. It was a blend of Broadway, Afrofuturism, and soul aesthetics. It reflected the post-civil rights optimism and urban identity. And it drove narrative, not just decoration. But it was a beautiful looking film with all the various set pieces that Dorothy would move from one to the next. Beautiful set pieces, beautiful colors and costumes, and just an overall wonderful production all the way around, led by Sidney Lumet. You'll see here to the top left, Coretta Scott King, the widow of the civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., meeting with Diana Ross on the set of the film. And this film was very important because it was a cultural milestone in that it was an all-black cast in this film doing this adaptation of this classic story. And I think that they did a really good job of realizing a very different and fresh take to this source material in a very fresh way that I can appreciate. It's a very entertaining film. There are certain sequences where you hear some of those songs like Ease On Down the Road. Just fantastic stuff. Really, really enjoyed that. And then, of course, The Wiz was shot in New York City and Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. So you really get that flavor of Oz, the wonderful land of Oz, and the interesting imagery that was created in the set and production design. But then you also had that urban look to it with some of the shots as well, since the story had a New York feel to it. So definitely appreciated that aspect of the story. So overall, I really enjoyed returning to this film, The Wiz. You know, does it rank up there with the original Wizard of Oz? Can't quite say that. I mean, the original Wizard of Oz is an all-time classic, but I do think that this is an entertaining take on the story. And for me, the treat of seeing Michael Jackson and Diana Ross back in 1978, this is a Michael Jackson before Off the Wall, before Thriller, before he really hit it big in the late 70s and early 80s. So it was really nice to see him in this, very early version of himself. I think he was like 20 years old when they shot this movie. And of course, Diana Ross in her mid 30s. So you see these two artists very early in their careers. Diana Ross was coming off of her time with the Supremes a few years. This is a few years after, I think, the breakup of the Supremes. And she is in top form in this film, as well as Michael Jackson. And the supporting cast, great. Nipsey Russell's fantastic. You have Richard Pryor in here, Lena Horne, just some fantastic cast members, and just an overall beautiful production. The music, fantastic. So I really enjoyed this movie from an entertainment standpoint, and definitely can recommend it if you like musicals. Now, in terms of how this film looks on 4K Ultra HD, this is a new 4K digital restoration of the original camera negative, and it looks really, really good. I mean, this film has been beautifully restored, and I give it high marks from a picture quality standpoint. This is a musical that has some beautiful set pieces and some fantastic uses of color. In particular, you'll see one scene in this film where it has like this carousel of dancers, and they're alternating between red, green, and gold. And that Dolby Vision gray does a really beautiful job of bringing additional vibrancy and pop to those colors, not only in that scene, but other scenes as well. I really appreciated the restoration work, the detail, the depth and the clarity of the image. They just did a beautiful job cleaning this film up and bringing it to a very, very beautiful overall appearance. There were no specks or dirt or anything on the image. It was just beautifully cleaned up, and it looks like it could have been shot, in the last decade or so. It just looks like a beautiful, fresh image. And that Dolby Vision really adds a nice little extra pop to the image in terms of extending the dynamic range, really giving some more vibrancy to the colors. And it is just a very beautiful looking image all the way around. I didn't get a strong sense or impression of the image in the early parts of the film when it was in the New York, in the New York before she went to Oz. But once she got to Oz, and once the film got underway further in the Land of Oz, you really got to appreciate with those dynamic images, you really got to appreciate the 4K picture and how it just really brought those images to life as she went from one, set to another, and different dance routines, different colors and costumes, and the detail of everything really showing through beautifully on this 4K disc. So I think it looks phenomenal. Now, in terms of the audio, I do have a slide about the audio because we need to talk for just a second about the audio. Apparently, some viewers have noted a few lines of dialogue missing, but the omissions do not appear to be that significant. Now, I watched this film from beginning to end. I did not notice any missing lines of dialogue. If you are very familiar with this film, if you've seen it multiple times and you know really every line in the film, you might notice some of those lines being missing, but I did not notice anything. So it's not anything that is incredibly significant. But I think, keen viewers might pick up on certain lines being missing, but it's not anything that is pervasive throughout the disc. But it's something to be aware of. If you go on the Criterion site as of July the 14th and July the 15th, the Criterion.com site had this title as currently unavailable. I don't know if that has to do with the audio issue. I don't know if there's any kind of replacement that's being contemplated. Just stay tuned to news from Criterion about that, but I don't have any information on that as of now. The only audio option is the Dolby Atmos Surround. The original soundtrack option is not available on this disc. So overall, I felt like the sound came across very well. There's some fantastic musical numbers in this film and on this disc. Diana Ross sings her you know what off, and she is awesome. Hearing Michael Jackson, hearing all the actors singing and talking in the dialogue, everything to me came across very well. I did not notice those missing lines of dialogue, but just want to make you aware that some viewers have noted a few lines of dialogue missing. So just as an awareness. But overall, I found the presentation from a video and audio standpoint to be very strong on this, particularly the video. This looks fantastic on 4K Ultra HD. Now, the supplements are an area where I would say this release comes in a bit light. There are only a few archival interviews that you have on this disc. You've got 2 archival interviews, one with Diana Ross, that's about 7 minutes, with her at the premiere of The Wiz. That's a decent interview. You get to hear directly from Diana Ross from 1978 during the premiere, and that was pretty cool. And then you have a roughly 12-minute discussion with the director Sidney Lumet, which is interesting because he gives you his perspective on Quincy Jones. They did work on, I think, 4 films together, including The Wiz. So he talks about his admiration of Quincy Jones and what he brought to this film. So I thought that was interesting. But those are the only 2 features on the disc, in addition to the audio commentary. Now, there's an audio commentary on here. It's a new commentary from scholars Michael B. Gillespie and Alfred L. Martin. I listened to that commentary for a few minutes, and it's pretty engaging. I think they both do a nice job, at least in the few minutes that I heard. So that is great to see a commentary on a disc, especially in a case like this where there's not much else in the way of supplements on the disc. So at least we have a commentary. And then on the inside here, on this insert, you have a very nice essay called A Soulful Oz by Aisha Harris. So definitely recommend checking that out. And of course, this fold out has some really nice art on it. So definitely check that out. That is definitely a great feature, as well as the art on the inside of the disc case. But yeah, as far as special features and supplements, this is a fairly light release. So overall, my recommendation on this release in the Criterion Collection is based upon the movie. If you like musicals, if you are interested in another adaptation of the Wizard of Oz story, if you like Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, you like a good musical, this is definitely worth checking out. It looks great on 4K Ultra HD. Be aware of the audio issue in terms of some lines of dialogue being missing, but didn't appear to be anything significant. I didn't even notice it. But so overall, I think the presentation is very strong, but the supplements are light. So this is one of those releases that I would recommend on a 50% off sale only. So definitely get it at 50% off. I don't recommend it, on a 30% off sale or full price. That's paying a little bit too much, but on a 50% off sale, this is definitely worth picking up if you like musicals and are interested in this story. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on The Wiz on 4K Ultra HD from the Criterion Collection. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this film from Sidney Lumet? Have you seen it? If so, what do you think about this film, and what are your favorite films from director Sidney Lumet? Also, let me know, what are your favorite albums from Titans, Diana Ross, and Michael Jackson? What are your favorite records and songs from Diana Ross and Michael Jackson? You can include Diana Ross's time with the Supremes, and after the Supremes. You can include for Michael Jackson his time with the Jackson 5, and after. What are your favorites from those 2 titans of the music industry? Let me know all that goodness in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.